Yo, YouTube, what's up with your boy? Sports and Fitness Rants. I'm back, guys. Click that like button. Subscribe to my channel. What's up, y'all? Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. Got another great video for you guys today. As usual, you guys know the deal on this channel. We must continue to set the record straight, guys. Stop the lies, stop the narratives, stop them from rewriting the history. That's what it's all about in this channel. You guys know that, man. There's no hate on this channel. It's about the facts here, guys. We must continue to stand up. And in this video, we're going to talk about how Michael Jordan's longevity on the defensive end is unmatched, right? LeBron James has nothing on Michael Jordan's longevity as it pertains to the defensive end, right? Michael Jordan has the defensive longevity that LeBron James doesn't have, guys. And we're going to talk about it in this video, man, because once again, when they hype up LeBron James's longevity, his quote-unquote longevity, all they're talking about is how many games he's played or how many seasons he's actually been playing. But the on-court game, there's no longevity there, guys. We're going to talk about it in this as it pertains to defensive and the defensive side of the ball, guys. And I want to thank you guys, man, everyone across the world, everyone across the states, man, that's been supporting my channel. I am truly, truly humble, guys, by all support, man, for real. It means a lot, man. We must continue to do this, and I appreciate you guys standing up with me, having my back, man. Like I said, you guys commented on my videos, liking my videos, subscribing to my channel, sharing my stuff. It means a lot, guys. Everybody in the membership, shout out to all you guys for all the continued support, man. Once again, I've told you guys, I've never been here for the money or the fame. So anyone who's felt the need to donate to my channel, guys, it is very, very humbling, guys. Much respect to all you guys out there. Thank you. And you guys know what to do. Turn the volume all the way up. Hit that play button. Remember, these videos are for educational purposes. And let's roll. So, yes, guys, like I said, man, we're going to talk about Michael Jordan's longevity on the defensive end and as it relates to a LeBron James. Because all we hear now, guys, right over the last several seasons, is that LeBron James' longevity is unmatched by anyone in the history of the game. But when they talk about longevity, they're always pointing to what? The amount of seasons that LeBron James has played, right? They can't be talking about the amount of times he's played 82 games in a season as longevity because he hasn't done these things, right? He's been load managing on the basketball court. He's been standing around on defense, right? Resting on defense to save his energy for the offensive end. That does not speak to longevity. So I always challenge the LeBron James fan club members whenever they want to bring up the longevity argument versus Michael Jordan or versus, when we're talking about, the offensive side or the defensive side of the ball. If you're going to bring up longevity, it does not hold up to Michael Jordan. It does not. LeBron James' longevity is all smokescreens and mirrors. I've told you this. And where's the evidence of this? I point to the same things. Right now, I always tell LeBron James fans, if LeBron James has been so great for so long, like they want you to believe, once again, it's another narrative, guys. They're trying to bend reality here. If LeBron James is so great all these years, he's been dominating the NBA since 2007, these fools will say. LeBron James has been the best player in the league since 2007. These are things that you'll hear these people say. The Draymond Greens, the Nick Wrights, all his stupid fans, right? Then how come this man has not won an MVP in his 30s? He's never won an MVP award in his 30s, guys. Meanwhile, someone like a Michael Jordan won several MVPs after his 30th birthday. But that has not been the same for LeBron James. Hasn't won an MVP since what? He was 28 years old. So if we're looking at that aspect, right? LeBron James not winning an MVP since he was 28 years old, but then they always try to talk about his longevity and how great he's been. It doesn't add up, guys, because if he was that great, dominating the league like they want you to believe, he would have won at least 1-2 MVPs over the last 10 seasons, guys. 10 seasons it's been since this man's won an MVP, but he's been dominating the league. Meanwhile, guys like James Harden have won MVPs during that time. Russell Westbrook has won an MVP during that time. Steph Curry's won several MVPs. Kevin Durant's won an MVP. Giannis, Jokic, Joel Embiid, all these guys have won MVP awards since LeBron James has not won one. But they want you to believe that he's been the best player in the league since 2007. He's been dominating the league. That's his longevity. Once again, guys, exposed. Now, when we focus on the defensive side of the ball, which we want to focus on in this video, when we think about the defensive longevity of Michael Jordan versus a LeBron James, guys, it's not even close. It's laughable for anyone to think or to believe that LeBron James' longevity is greater than Michael Jordan's. I've told you guys many times on this channel, to me, Michael Jordan's game never declined. It evolved, which is evident in his career and the way it played out. And once again, Michael Jordan was always playing on both sides of the ball, never resting on offense or resting on defense for offense or resting on offense to play defense. This is the longevity of Michael Jordan on both sides of the ball that LeBron James just simply does not have, guys. So when we think about Michael Jordan, right, and we think about something like the all-defensive teams, for example, let's think about the all-defensive selections, right, that they started in the 1969 season, right? So it wasn't around from the beginning of the NBA's history. We all get that. The true basketball fans understand that, right? This is why we don't use all defensive selections to argue against some of the guys in the previous eras because they were not around. The Bill Russells, the Will Chamberlains, right? These guys would have had several all defensive teams, I'm sure, and they would have had several Defensive Player of the Year awards, I'm sure and certain, if they had those awards back in them days. But thinking about the modern era of NBA, and we think about the longevity of someone like a Michael Jordan on the defensive end versus the LeBron James guys, it's not even close. Not even close. And I'm going to give you guys some context here because this is what I do on this channel. And I'm going to read off some names of guys. And the last time that they won, or the last time that they made an all-defensive first team, guys, right? Like I said, this is a lot of the guys of the modern era, the great defensive players over the last 20, 30 years that we think about. When you think about all-time great defensive players, a lot of times you'll hear these guys' names brought up. And I'm going to mention some of these guys. And the last time that they made an all-defensive first team, not the last time they made an all-defensive team, the last time that they made an all-defensive first team, I just want to give you the age of some of these players, and then we're going to compare it to a Michael Jordan versus LeBron James. So when we think about Scottie Pippen, guys, right, one of the all-time great defensive players, Scottie Pippen, the last time he made an all-defensive first team was in the 1998-1999 season. Right, he made all-defensive first team in his first year in Houston. You guys remember, after that year, Michael Jordan retired, everyone left. Scottie Pippen went to the Houston Rockets, right? Was on the all-defensive first team at 33 years old, all right? That's very impressive for Scottie Pippen. However, the one thing that we must keep in mind here, once again, the context here, that was during a 50-game lockout-shortened season. So Scottie Pippen made an all-defensive first team at 33 years old in a lockout-shortened season. We only played 50 games that year. No knock on him, but it was a lockout-shortened season. It's not the same. All right, as playing all 82 games and being all defensive in an all 82 game season. But Scottie Pippen at 33, keep that in mind, made an all defensive team in his 30s. Let's think about Kobe Bryant, right? Another all-time great defensive player, right? Always gave the F on the defensive end. Kobe Bryant, man, the grit, the heart of a Kobe Bryant on the defensive end, the hustle of Kobe Bryant on the defensive end, the tenacity of a Kobe Bryant, similar to a Scottie Pippen, the tenacity, the aggression on the defensive end. Kobe Bryant's last time making all-defensive first team was at 32 years old, which is very impressive, 2010-2011 season, right? We all know about the injuries that Kobe Bryant battled throughout his career, but it was on the all-defensive first team at 32 years old. So shout out to Kobe Bryant, once again, making an all-defensive first team in his 30s. Let's think about Tim Duncan, another all-time great defensive player, right? The defensive longevity of Tim Duncan is really, like I said, probably unmatched. The man made an all-defensive team from the first year he came in the league all the way almost into the very last season. The year before his last season, he was on the all-defensive team, right? We all know about Tim Duncan anchoring the San Antonio's defense for all those years. The great San Antonio defense all those years was anchored by Tim Duncan. The last time Tim Duncan made an all-defensive first team was at 31 years old, the 07-08 season. 31 years old for Tim Duncan. So Tim Duncan made an all-defensive first team in his 30s. I've told you, the man made an all-defensive team from the first year he came in the league. All right, this is Tim Duncan, right? One of the all-time great defensive players in the history of the NBA. Made an all-defensive team at 31 years old. Let's think about Gary Payton. He made an all-defensive first team at 33 years old. His last all-defensive first team, 33 years old, at 01-02 season, right? We all know Gary Payton, one of the great defensive guards in the history of the game, arguably the greatest defensive point guard in the history of the game. I said up there with guys like Walt Clyde Frazier, Jason Kidd, and Dennis Johnson, right? These are some of the great defensive point guards in the history of the game. So shout out to Gary Payton, who made one at 33 years old, man. It's very impressive. All-defensive first team at 33 years old for Gary Payton. Let's think about Hakeem Olajuwon, right? Arguably the greatest defensive big man of all time. Arguably the greatest defensive player in the history of the game. Hakeem the Dream Olajuwon, one of the great two-way players in the history of the game, right? One of the greatest two-way players in the history. Not just a defensive player, but on both sides of the ball. Hakeem Olajuwon was outstanding. The last all-defensive first team for Hakeem Olajuwon was 1993-1994 season at 31 years old. So still very impressive for Hakeem Olajuwon, who played both sides of the ball, who anchored the Houston Rockets all those years to make an all-defensive first team at 31 years old, guys. So shout out to him. If we think about someone like Kevin Garnett, for example, the last all-defensive team for Kevin Garnett, 34 years old for Kevin Garnett, guys. Very impressive. Kevin Garnett to make an all-defensive team at 34 years old. So shout out to Kevin Garnett. We said one of the great defensive power forwards in the history of the game. One of the most versatile defensive power forwards in the history of the game, man. So shout out to Kevin Garnett, making an all defensive first at 34 years old. John Havlicek, another all-time great defensive player at the small forward position. I've talked to you guys many times about John Havlicek, man. The great two-way play of John Havlicek, the stamina, the endurance, the grit, the heart of a John Havlicek. And John Havlicek's last all-defensive first team, 35 years old, guys. 35 years old, this man made an all-defensive first team. At 35 years old, man, that is very impressive for a John Hondo Havlicek, man. So once again, showing the longevity on the defensive end. So shout out to him. Let's think about Kawhi Leonard, man, right? Kawhi Leonard. The last time Kawhi Leonard made an all-defensive first team, you guys probably won't believe this. He was 25 years old, guys. 25 years old. And this is my problem with Kawhi Leonard as far as him being one of the all-time great defensive players. He just doesn't have the defensive longevity due to the injuries, the frailness of his body, the load managing that he's done in his career. The last time he made an all-defensive first team, guys, was 25. 25 years old. That's a long time ago, guys. 25 years old. So once again, that was the 2016-2017 season. That was probably Kawhi Leonard's last great season, man, where he played all the games, essentially, and then he got hurt in the playoffs by Zaza Pachulia. But he was 25, guys, the last time he made an all-defensive first team. And Kawhi Leonard's an all-time great defensive player. But he was 25 the last time he made one, guys. Now, let's think about Michael Jordan here. Michael Jordan last made an all-defensive first team at 34 years old, right? The last season on the Bulls, 1997-98 season. He was 34 years old, made an all-defensive first team. However, the difference between Michael Jordan, all those players that I just read off, the ages that they were when they made their last all-defensive first team, Michael Jordan happened to do what that season? In that final season, he won the championship, Finals MVP, led the league in scoring, won the MVP, was on the All-NBA first team and on the All-NBA defensive first team. That's called longevity, y'all. Winning an MVP in your last season at 34, 35 years old, on the all-defensive team at 34, 35 years old. Like I said, leading your team to a championship, Finals MVP, All-NBA first team, all these things that Michael Jordan did in 1998 while playing and being on the first team all-defense, guys. Also, some of those other players, they were not always on the first team all defense. Tim Duncan, for example, had made an all defensive second team before that. Someone like a Hondo Havlicek, I believe he had made an all defensive second team at one point before that last season on the all defensive first team. Michael Jordan was never on anything but all defensive first teams. He was never on an all defensive second team. So there was never a year where Michael Jordan was all defensive first team, and then he fell off a little bit and was on the second team all defense. It never happened. That's the longevity. That's the consistency that I'm always talking to you guys about in this channel of Michael Jordan versus LeBron James. Now, let's think about LeBron James. When was the last time LeBron James made an all-defensive first team? It happened to be the 2012-13 NBA season, right? When he was 28 years old on the Miami Heat super team, that was the last time LeBron James made an all-NBA first team, guys. The 2012-13 season. We are playing right now, guys, in the 2023-24 season. 11 years later, LeBron James has never made an all-NBA first team, guys. 11 seasons. 11 seasons. But they want to talk about longevity? No, because once again, guys, where does this expose LeBron James? Is what I'm always telling you guys. He rests on the defensive end. He stands around with his hands on his hips and just stands there, plays no defense like that. He picks and chooses when to give effort. And this is why he hasn't been on an all-defensive team in all these years. The man could not even sniff an all-defensive second team all these years in the weakest defensive era in the history of the game. With guys like Jaren Jackson Jr., Rudy Gobert, Draymond Green, Marcus Smart. These are the elite defensive players of his era, of this era. But LeBron James can't sniff an all-defensive second team in all of these years. All these years, he can't sniff one of those. No, because LeBron James does not have the longevity like that. I just told you, he hasn't won an MVP since he was 28 years old, but they want you to believe that he's been dominating the NBA since 07. The best player in the league since 07, but the best player in the NBA hasn't won an MVP in 10 seasons. Think about how that sounds. That sounds ridiculous. That would be like us saying that Michael Jordan was the greatest player in the 90s, but he never won an MVP in the 90s. Never won one in the 90s. It doesn't add up. Michael Jordan, I've told you guys on this channel, he's the only player in NBA history, guys, the only player to win an MVP in the beginning of his career, right? In the middle of his career, and at the end of his career. Most players have either won it in the beginning and the middle, or maybe the middle and the end, or maybe just at the end, like Karl Malone, but never in the middle, or just in the middle, like a Larry Bird, but never at the end, never in the beginning, like a Magic Johnson, but at the middle and the end, right? Bill Russell, Will Chamberlain, the beginning and the middle of their careers, they won MVPs, but they did not win it at the ends of their careers. They did not. So when you think about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who has longevity, he didn't win an MVPs at the end of his career. He didn't win any MVPs in the 80s, guys. His last MVP season was a 79-80 season. Last time he won an MVP. So, not saying that Kareem Abdul doesn't have longevity, but he was not dominating the 80s. He was not the best player in the 80s. He didn't win MVP in the 80s. Guys like Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Moses Malone, Dr. J, Michael Jordan, they won MVPs in the 80s. They were the best players in the league. That's why they were winning those awards. For LeBron James and his fans, all these people in the media to pump up his longevity, it's not valid. Where's LeBron James' longevity on the defensive end? It's never been there. When you compare him against the other all-time great defensive players, that they keep trying to make it seem like LeBron James is an all-time great defensive player or a great defensive player when he's not, because he's never been consistent. And where's the evidence? The longevity is not there for LeBron James on the defensive side of the ball because he's been resting on defense for years now so that he can shot jack and get his offensive numbers. It's all about the stats for LeBron James. His fans always point to the stats. They don't point to the substance. The video footage exposes LeBron James, quote unquote longevity. It exposes that, guys. So, guys, as you can see, LeBron James can't touch Michael Jordan's longevity as it pertains to the defensive end, as it pertains to two-way play in general. He's not the two-way player of a Michael Jordan or some of these other all-time greats. He just wasn't there because, once again, he had to rest on defense for the offense. Tim Duncan was not doing that. Kevin Garnett was not doing that. Kobe Bryant wasn't doing that. All these guys I mentioned, Gary Payton, Hakeem Olajuwon, they're just not resting on defense for offense or resting on offense to be a lead on the defensive end. That's not how it went for these guys. They gave effort on both sides of the ball, right? And on the defensive end, these guys were able to make all defensive first teams in their 30s, well into their 30s. John Havlicek, 35 years old. But LeBron James has never made one in his 30s, but they want you to believe that LeBron James is the greatest athlete that's ever played basketball, right? All this crazy athleticism, but he can't make an all-defensive team in his 30s. LeBron James spends millions on his body. He's in better shape than anyone else in history. He's in better shape than all these guys that I read off. He's a greater athlete than all those guys I read off. But yet and still, those guys were able to make all defensive first teams well into their 30s, give the effort on both sides of the ball. But LeBron James, who they pump up to have longevity, spending all the money in his body, the best athlete in the greatest condition, the man can't make an all-defensive team in his 30s. He has to rest on defense for offense. Think about that. And we all know about the suspicion LeBron James is under. So all this going on, and you still can't manage to play 80 games and play both sides of the ball. Meanwhile, guys who are not as athletically gifted, who didn't spend millions on their body, they didn't have millions to spend on their body back in them days, who played under stricter, harsher conditions, more physical defense, they were able to do that at a higher level. The longevity, play on both sides, give the defensive effort. It's not there. LeBron James has never been the two-way player of a Michael Jordan, and he's been exposed. All these guys that I read off, they're not the two-way players of Michael Jordan that Michael Jordan was, right? That's why it's more impressive Michael Jordan making an all-defensive first team at 34, 35 years old, while leading the league in scoring, being all-NBA, right? First team, and never missing a single game. Never missing a single game. Something that LeBron James has been doing for years now, missing all kinds of games, but they keep pumping up his longevity. It's not valid, guys. It's not valid. You can't be claiming LeBron James has all this longevity, never made an all-defensive team in 10 years, hasn't won MVP in over 10 years. Standing around on defense on the video footage. It's exposed, guys. More excuses for LeBron James. He can't touch Michael Jordan's longevity. He can't touch Michael Jordan's two-way play. He never's been able to, even at his peak in Miami. He'll never be, never was the two-way player of a Michael Jordan, guys. You guys know the deal, man. These are the facts. We must continue to stop these fools from rewriting the history, and we must continue to set the record straight. LeBron James' longevity got nothing on Michael Jordan. Nothing. Especially as it pertains to the two-way play, offense and defense. You guys know the deal, man. I'll catch you guys on the next one.